The Last of Us is a fantastic game that we all know and love, and it's a great example of how video games can be art. But what makes it so good? Hey everyone, my name is TheiPadCat, and today, like a month after my last video, I finally got my shit together again. But enough about that, let's get right into it. More than often, the argument for why The Last of Us is such a great game comes from the portrayal of Joel and Ellie's relationship throughout the story. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. After all, that's what Naughty Dog set out to do when they developed the game, and boy did they succeed. However, there is another less discussed thing that's such a big part of what makes The Last of Us great, at least in my opinion. What is this thing, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. When Naughty Dog first began development on The Last of Us, they thought they would fail and destroy their reputation. Which is a perfectly reasonable thing to think as a developer making yet another post-apocalyptic zombie-ish game, as that part of the video game industry becomes more and more saturated, which makes it harder and harder for developers to make something unique, because, well, every single one of those games are built on the same basic concept. The world is screwed and overflowing with monster-turned humans, and the brave hero or heroes must survive. Get to the point. I will. Neil Druckmann, all hail the Naughty Gods, has stated that they make their games based on simple stories with complex characters, and that's certainly the case with The Last of Us. Just look at Joel. Look at how complex he looks. No, but seriously, what if I told you that the world in which The Last of Us takes place is a character too? Sure, it's the backdrop for the much more important story of Joel and Ellie, but if you take a step back and think about it, it's really good. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Dying Light. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the gameplay in that game. There's just something amazing about running around, chopping heads off as a secret agent, Mirror's Edge style. But the world itself, even if it's beautiful in a graphical sense, is pretty plain and boring. It, like many other post-apocalyptic games and movies, lacks depth. In The Last of Us, there are plenty of notes and other collectibles, conversations, and even environmental storytelling that makes it so much more alive, and I'm not saying that's groundbreaking or unique, but the way it was executed is definitely better than most games. There was never a time during the campaign where at least I felt that the location was just generic or boring. Now, I know Dying Light is an open world game and that developers can't put as much detail into every location as in a linear game, but that was just one example. Another thing about the world is the believability. For example, how society was affected. There are just so many post-apocalyptic universes that leave the collapse of civilization unexplained, or just pulls the classic, the military was overrun, everything went to shit, now nothing's left. Naughty Dog instead took the time to try and, as realistically as possible, create a world showcasing how society would react and adapt, instead of just wiping the slate clean and begin anew. Nothing is really over-the-top ridiculous, like in Fallout for example. And before you kill me Fallout fans, I'm a fan myself, I've put hundreds of hours into those games. Every faction in The Last of Us are just people dealing with the problems that the apocalypse brings in different ways. If something were to somehow almost wipe out humanity, I think The Last of Us is a pretty close portrayal of how society would react, minus the whole thing with the infected of course. But that's just what I think. Obviously, The Last of Us is one of my favorite games, and thus I'm surely biased. What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Tell me in the comments down below, and until next time, have a good day.